Hey guys, Frightener22 here, and welcome back to a very overdue installment of Childhood Flix Picks. But before I get into this latest installment, I just wanted to thank all the subscribers for tuning in over the past year or so, because I just reached a really big milestone on my channel. I just crossed into the 500 subscribers mark, so I couldn't have reached that without all you guys supporting me and tuning in. So I just wanted to thank you guys once again for watching all my videos. So I knew with reaching that milestone, I really wanted to give you guys a really special video, so I figured it's been a really long time since I've done a Childhood Flix Picks review, so I figured I would highlight a film that I grew up loving and still love immensely to this day. So we're going to be taking a look at the 1990 classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, if I may, let me just bring you guys back to a time where nothing else mattered but the Ninja Turtles. You couldn't take a shit or read a newspaper or turn on a television without seeing the four turtles grace across it. I mean, they were everywhere. They started off on, a relatively underground and kind of violent comic book in the mid-'80s, and then they catapulted to fame in 1987 with an animated television show, which just basically launched into a giant, phenomenon that's just basically lasted 25 years strong now. The television show, created into a really successful toy line, which still continues to go on to this day. And then of course we came to 1990, where a live action film was developed for audiences. Now, when news of a live action film of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was announced, kids worldwide shit their pants. Literally shit came catapulting out of their pants, and kids went haywire through the roofs. I mean, it was just one of those things that people didn't really know how it was going to be done, because we grew up loving the characters in a very comical 2D fashion, but now this was going to be something really fresh and really new, all in live action. I still remember being young, walking through, the theaters and seeing the teaser poster for the movie showcasing the Turtles, peeking out of the sewer and just saying, like, the tagline, "This ain't no cartoon, dude." It was just really exciting to see something that big of a phenomenon unfold before your eyes. Now, the budget on this film was actually incredibly modest. It was only a mere $13.5 million, and this film on this wee little budget would go on to gross $135 million plus. Now, as from what I could collect from my research, that is the highest grossing independent film of all time. I don't know if it still holds that title, but from what I could gather up in all my research, it still actually holds that title. That is an incredibly impressive feat that people just, you don't see that kind of stuff happen anymore, where people make a film on a modest budget like that and just see it, multiply into tens of hundreds of millions like that. It was just, incredible. Now, getting all, the technical and financial numbers out of the way, let's talk about why this film is so important and why it's lived on, 20 plus years today. Of course, this takes on the story. It opens up on a great, shot of New York City during a time when New York was still, combating a really big crime wave. So the thing that I really appreciate and love with this film is not only does it showcase the Turtles in live action, really, really well, but it's a real, amazing time capsule of New York City at a time where it was still really struggling, crime was really, just out of whack, and, just the youth at that time was just going through a lot of changes, there's just a big climate change in society at that time, so I always, hark to the original Ninja Turtles movie just to see what New York was like, getting out of the 80s and then walking into the 90s. It's just really cool because it's nothing that they had to really fabricate or could fabricate on their budget. I mean, what you see is what you get. That was New York City. New York City was truly a place to fear back then, and in some, cases, and in some parts of the city it still is, but you don't get that fear, today like you did back then. It's just a real time capsule of just a time and a place where it was, you feared for your life, when you walk down most streets in the city. So like I said, it opens up on a landscape of New York City, and you're seeing, the opening shots of the Foot Clan, the beginnings of the Foot Clan really taking over the crime wave of New York City. And of course, it's, ran by none other than the Shredder. So it isn't before long that reporter April O'Neil is kind of reporting, the only one that has the balls enough to kind of bring, the crime wave and connect the dots that there could be something ninja related from Japan that's really taking a hold over New York City. And of course, the Foot Clan and the Shredder don't really like this, ditzy little reporter kind of spoiling their plans of taking over the city. So they end up jumping her and, basically trying to shut her up permanently until the Turtles come to her rescue. And then once the Turtles intervene, the Shredder and the Foot Clan obviously don't like that at all, and it just becomes an all-out war between the two forces. So the one interesting thing that I really had always wondered, and I never really took the time to look up, I was like, this is a really iconic film. It was a franchise that kind of got blown into this big thing. I mean, the live-action film was kind of the top of the crop for it, so it was always like, who was actually behind, sitting in the director's chair for this? So throughout my research, I actually found out that this film was directed by Steve Barron. Now, that may not seem like a very household name, and it's because it's not. Steve Barron, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was really his big feature film debut. He would, of course, go on to direct other such films, such as The Coneheads, but before that, he was actually a really prominent music video director, especially in the 80s. He directed some of the best music videos of the 1980s. He's responsible for Michael Jackson's Billie Jean, as well as a-ha's Take On Me, which people regard, including myself, as one of the best music videos ever made, and he was also in control of directing duties on Dire Straits' Money for Nothing. So he had a really, really impressive eye, and that's who was actually behind the camera of the first installment of Ninja Turtles. So I think it's really cool when you go through and see just how many music videos he's done. You'd actually be surprised at how much of Steve Barron's work you've probably seen over the years. Now, moving on, the creature designs and the makeup effects of the Ninja Turtles and of Splinter were actually done by Jim Henson's Creature Shop, and they actually look at the best out of all three of the movies. As the sequels wore on, you kind of get them, taking on much more of a cartoony type look, but it's without a doubt that, the general consensus amongst most fans is that the Turtles just looked the best in the first movie. Like, there was really nothing wrong with them and nothing that they should have added or taken away for the sequels. I mean, I just think that the overall look and design of them came off really well. I think that Jim Henson's Creature Shop did a really magnificent job on it. Now, although there aren't many noteworthy names as far as casting in this film goes, I think it adds to its benefit that, they kind of hired a lot of no-name actors at the time, but of course this is 20 years ago, so when you look back at it, there are characters in it that are just supporting cast or, merely extras in the film that actually went on to really prominent careers, such as Casey Jones, who plays a pretty important role as, an ally to the Ninja Turtles. That actor, Elias Koteas, actually went on to do some really impressive stuff. He worked with Cronenberg in 1996's Crash, and then he would go on to work with David Fincher in Zodiac. He's just been all over the place. You see him popping up a lot from the mid-90s up until today. He managed to snag a lot of really great supporting roles with some really high-profile directors, so he's really made a name for himself over the years, and probably one of the most noteworthy people in it plays his first feature film was actually Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and he has a few speaking lines as kind of like one of the, most highlighted thugs or gang members of the Foot Clan. It's actually a young Sam Rockwell, and I almost always forget that it's him because he just looks so young, because it's, practically 20 years old, and the Sam Rockwell that I know is the Sam Rockwell from Matchstick Men and Iron Man 2 and whatnot. So it's really cool to just kind of see him land his first gig in such a, a nostalgic and, favorite childhood film of mine, such as Ninja Turtles. So it's really cool to go back and see that stuff. One of the best things that I can really compliment this film on is just, it's something that when fans look back on, it's not something that they look back on and they're embarrassed to say that they love it. I mean, kids that grew up on the television show or read the comics, everybody kind of looks back on the original film and doesn't really have anything bad to say about it. It really implemented a lot of the humor and comedy that we were used to as kids, found in the animated television show, but it really inhabited that darkness and that really gritty, sometimes violent feel that the original comic books had. So I think that's a really, really thin line to, walk on, where you're trying to make this, marketable to kids that obviously loved it because of the the very popular animated show, but pleasing the original fans that grew up, when Ninja Turtles is a very underground comic in the early to mid 80s. So in that respect, I can't really give Ninja Turtles a higher compliment than that, because it's one of those rare comic book / television show adaptations that really pulls out all the stunts and, manages to do a really magnificent job in, pleasing all the fans across the board. It's done really, really well. Now, something that I actually learned again in my research is that on the German DVD, there's actually an audio commentary which is not found in any of the American releases. Why, I have no fucking idea. But it's found in the German release, and the original plan was actually to have the movie out before the animated television show actually ran, and it was supposed to be even more in tune with the comic books from the mid-'80s, but no country in the world wanted to invest their money in it. I think only 2 countries, that being France and Germany, I believe, were the only ones that really wanted to put the cash up for it. So, it's kind of funny to see that, the movie was actually planned well before the television show, and this is me just being really geeky about it, but here's a clever way to connect this all. There's a scene where Raphael actually goes to the movies, and the movie that he comes out of is Critters. Now, Critters came out in 1986. The animated television show didn't debut until 1987. So the fact that they're saying that the live-action film was supposed to premiere before the animated show, although it's subtle, the live-action film is actually kind of went the distance in kind of making it known that chronologically it is supposed to take place before the animated television show. Is everybody getting that? Does everybody get that? I hope so, and I hope that I get a ton of comments, disowning me and telling me what a loser I am for pointing that out, but I just thought that was kind of interesting since I just viewed it before. I thought it was really interesting. But to needless to say the least, I want to say that the 25th anniversary collector's edition that I reviewed is it comes with all 4 of the films presented in the Blu-ray format, and as much as I want to say is that it's a pimped-out release and there's all these tons of special features and the print looks great, I can't really say that. There's absolutely no special features on it at all, and the print is really not that great, and the audio was really lacking. Overall, I had bought this whole box set for $18.99, which I really can't complain, because for 4 Blu-rays, it's a steal of a deal, and I really can't complain, but for a movie as classic and, memorable as the original Ninja Turtles movie, I would just expect so much better of a treatment, especially since, you're celebrating the 25th anniversary since the Ninja Turtles beginnings and, from their old comic book days. So I just really expected a lot more, especially hearing that a German DVD release had an audio commentary with the director. Why would people think, why would the American studios think that American fans wouldn't want that? I mean, it was this country that really catapulted. I mean, it was a worldwide phenomenon, but, this country was, so, immersed in, the Ninja Turtles fandom of it all. So I can't wrap my head around why they wouldn't give it, a better edition of that. Now, I mean, now that they've been presented in Blu-ray, who knows when we're going to see another, future special edition with, features that, the fans rightfully deserve to see in the making of this. Because from what I understand, there's plenty of deleted scenes. That you can go back and do a lot of documentary footage and whatnot. There's just a lot of interesting stuff to find out about, the Ninja Turtles saga. Now, of course, this film was a massive success at the box office. Like I had mentioned earlier, it grossed about $135 million, and of course after that, it was, a constant thing to cash in on. So they followed it up with 3 sequels, and you can see in Ninja Turtles 2, The Secret of the Ooze, that the humor is a little bit more brighter, and the darker tones of it all has really been trimmed down a lot. And of course, you move on to the 3rd one, which is arguably the worst of the film series, but in both the sequels, they kind of ham up the humor a lot, and the dark scenery and, you know, the darkness that you see in the original Ninja Turtles just isn't there at all anymore. And like I said, the creature designs in the second and third one just kind of continuously get worse and worse. But thankfully in 2007 we were treated to TMNT, which was a really phenomenal CG adaptation of our favorite characters, and I really enjoyed that one a lot. I saw that in the theater opening day, and that was a hell of a good time. But nothing comes close to the original 1990 classic. I mean, we're here 25 years later, and we're still talking about how great and memorable the Ninja Turtles are, and all I can say is that I hope that 25 years from now, I'm still talking about how great and wonderful these iconic characters are. So, if you're wondering why this film is so great, if you haven't seen it, I don't know what you're waiting for. It's a classic. It needs to be seen by kids of all generations and adults that just grew up with it, such as myself. So, this is absolutely a childhood film that you don't look back on and you're embarrassed to say, oh yeah, I grew up with the Turtles, I loved it. No, it's a film that you can proudly pull off your shelf, expose it to people, and be like, this is the shit. Ninja Turtles are the shit, have always been the shit, and will always be the shit. So, that's all I got for you guys this time. Like I said, thanks again for, allowing me to reach 500 subscribers. That's a really incredible feat. So I hope that I can come back and do more childhood Flix Picks reviews for you guys on somewhat of a regular basis, because I kind of started this segment off really hot, but I kind of, over the past few weeks and months, I kind of really got off track with it, so I'm really happy to present this review for you guys, and I hope that I can continue doing more of them. As always, guys, thanks again for tuning in, and I'll catch you in a future video. This has been Frightener22.